Once upon a time there was a pretty fly. He had a pretty wife, this pretty fly. But one day she flew away, flew away.
It is truly one of the most peculiar and ironic aspects of Laughton's reputation that he is now better known as the director of The Night of the Hunter than he is as an actor, which would be inconceivable to anybody in the 30s or 40s. He was truly one of the greatest screen actors who ever lived. Half of his films aren't available at the moment. No actor that I've met under the age of 35 knows who Charles Laughton was. And yet everybody knows The Night of the Hunter, directed by someone called Charles Laughton. I'm not sure he wouldn't have been happy with that. I think he thought it was the best of him. He was able, I think, Laughton, to evolve this absolute working method and his own vision with an extraordinary confidence. Quiet confidence based on humility to create this visionary film, truly visionary film. The Night of the Hunter, when it gets into its stride, it speaks a language which is all its own.
Don't you hurt her? Hurt her nothing. Wash her's more like it. Ruby! Clary! Mary!
Yes, Miss Hooper?
Bring your basket.
Laughton had an extraordinary career trajectory, which is that he gave what he felt to be, and what everybody felt to be, his, up till then, greatest performance in Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1939. And from then on, his focus seemed to sort of drift away from acting in movies to that and to directing on stage. Producer, Paul Gregory, decided that Laughton would make a very good film director. Gregory had heard that there was a novel called The Night of the Hunter by a writer called Davis Grubb, and he had the incredible nous and flair to go and get the rights. It is as if the novel had been written for Charles Laughton, because it concerned everything that inspired him. Here was Davis Grubb's book, which is full of incantatory rhythms and biblical overtones, and a kind of a homespun lyricism. The central figure in the book is the preacher who is a fraud and a liar and a killer.
Oh, dear madam, if you was to know what a crown of thorns I've borne in my search for them strayed chicks.
Laughton had led his whole life in the closet as a gay man and was terrified of being exposed as a gay man. He felt that the church embodied the very forces of oppression which had kept him there. He was very keen to denounce the hypocrisy of religion as he saw it. But also, it's a book of redemption. Laughton then commissioned a screenplay from James Agee, which seemed like an inspired idea. Agee wrote a wonderfully interesting, rich screenplay, which Laughton then edited and honed.
Look at yourself. What do you see, girl? You see the body of a woman, the temple of creation and motherhood. You see the flesh of Eve that man since Adam has profaned.
Laughton saw acting as a great art, and he believed passionately in the art of the cinema. He surrounded himself by a team who really shared his view about art and the way it's made. They were limited to some extent by budget. They had to shoot mostly in the studio. And where that would have been a terrible limitation for some people, Laughton and his designer and his cameraman immediately saw that they could do something fresh and visionary with that.
Hush, little one,
little water.
Hilliard Brown, his designer, devised all kinds of fantastic trompe-l'oeil effects to create, for example, the A-frame, or the whole business of the stars. The star cloth was just bits of tinsel and little lights, and it almost looks like it too. There are different styles within the film. There's this mode of high poetic intensity and expressionism with the foregrounded animals as you go up the river, and the little dwarf on a donkey who represents Preacher on the horizon. Then also you have the scenes which are slapstick comedy. They're almost Tom and Jerry, where Preacher tumbles down the stairs. But you get it even as Preacher goes into the swamp. He's a comic ghoul. Laughton saw this as a sort of a fairy story, and he always talked about it as a Mother Goose story. And he saw Rachel as Mother Goose, this good, strong, sturdy, sort of peasant woman. Many people insist that the film is very frightening. I've never found it so, and I don't think Laughton intended it to be so either. You know that good is going to triumph. There's no question about that at all. What we see in the scene in the burlesque house is that female sexuality is a horror to him. That whole sequence is Laughton. To make explicit the perversion of sexual repression, which is something that Laughton felt himself very, very much. He had been a very sexually repressed man, and now, by the 1950s, he was a sexually insatiable man. But he knew that that was a perversion of how it all started out, which was a quest for love. He invests an enormous amount in the character of Ruby and her forgiveness, and the wonderful speech that Gish makes is a remarkable piece of compassion and projection on his part. But he wants to show us the way that it all goes wrong, and then he offers out, as in a fairy story, or as it might be in a Brecht play, where the party finally puts everything to rights. So Lillian Gish shows that there is a good way to be loved and to be a sexual being.
You were looking for love, Ruby, in the only foolish way you knew how.
The atmosphere on the set, according to Lillian Gish, was absolutely one of intense satisfaction and happiness in the work. Everybody knew they were working on something quite wonderful. Laughton was more fulfilled, I think, than he'd been for years as an artist. And then the film was released. It was sort of taken to be a sort of a thriller of some sort. Most of the reviews kind of liked it, but kind of didn't think it was anything special. Hardly noticed at all what the things that the film is loved for now. The things like the river sequence, hardly even mentioned. The whole redemption theme was hardly discussed at all, and the film just kind of drizzled away. Laughton had been having back pain for a long time, and it was very, very exhausting for him. He was now really playing cameo parts in movies. He was giving fine performances all the way along the line, but nothing on the level of creativity that he'd brought to Quasimodo, for example, or Captain Bligh, or even Henry VIII, this extraordinary reimagining of himself. He was still the actor he always had been, but the outlets were less, and his health was poor. And the end is very heartbreaking, because there was no more talk of movies that he would direct. It was not a wonderful end, you know, by any means.